Hello everybody and welcome back to White Guy Gets Upset at Thing That Doesn't Really Matter. Today we're going to be talking about the Death Note Netflix movie. For me personally, I'm a huge fan of the Death Note anime, and I knew as soon as they released like the first trailer for this movie that it was going to be a disaster, but I wanted to wait until the movie came out. I wanted to give it a chance, and after doing that, I have a few things I'd like to talk about. I'm going to try to segment this video as best I can. The first thing I want to talk about is why I think the Death Note anime is so good. I don't watch a lot of anime. I'm not opposed to watching anime, I just don't really know which ones to watch. But this show was recommended to me a couple years ago by my friend, and I was like hooked instantly. I think the story, while incorporating a lot of maybe supernatural and sort of weird elements, is still pretty grounded in reality. Really, the core of the story is these two geniuses basically chasing each other, and it's so fast-paced. It's 37 episodes, but they pack so much into the 37 episodes. I think what the Death Note show does well that a lot of like network American shows don't do well is the pacing, how fast-paced it is. And I'm talking about like network shows like, you know, CSI, NCIS, those kind of shows. I don't watch those shows, but I grew up watching shows like that. One of the first shows I watched a lot of, like the first drama I watched was Alias, and I watched Lost. I watched Heroes, was a really good show for a little bit. While these shows had very good moments, the problem with a lot of these shows is the American model of television is that every season you have like 23 episodes. They're all 44 minutes long. So rather than taking a good story and condensing it to just the good parts, so you're going from one exciting thing to the next, it's the opposite, where they take a good story and they stretch it out. And some episodes, you'll spend 45 minutes watching an episode, and then by the end it's like, wait, nothing happened. The worst thing you can do is make something longer than it needs to be. So getting back to Death Note, I think that's one of the things that makes this show so great. You're always like on your toes. You never know what's gonna happen next. The writing is fantastic. The music is great. Each character has kind of their own theme. L's song, when he comes in, I mean, I get goosebumps hearing that because it reminds me of the show. It reminds me of like these tense moments. It's so good. It's so incredibly good. I mean, I could talk about it for a really long time, but like I was just complaining about, I don't want to make this video longer than it needs to be. If you've already seen the show, you know why it's good. If you haven't seen the show, I don't want to keep talking about it. I think you should just give it a chance. At least give the first 2 episodes a chance and see if you get hooked, because it's a great show. It really is. All right, now transitioning into the movie. Where did the movie go wrong? What are people complaining about the movie, and what are some of them getting wrong, in my opinion? Now, I think there's 2 main issues that people have with this movie, and then there's a counter argument that goes with each one, and I want to address all 4 of those. And this morning I was reminded to watch the movie because I saw a sponsored post by Netflix. I knew exactly what argument I was going to see. It's what most of the comments say. The biggest thing people want to say is they're throwing around the word whitewashing. You took a Japanese story with Japanese characters, and instead of having Japanese actors play these roles, you have a bunch of white people play the role. And then there's people responding to people saying whitewashing, saying, actually L was black. Shut up, snowflake. But here's what I think both people are kind of getting wrong. Now, is whitewashing a problem? Yeah, I think it is. And I don't want to talk about this too much because I don't want to act like I'm an authority on this issue. I'm a white guy. I haven't experienced anything like this personally, but I can essentially quote what I've heard from a few members of Asian American heritage. Imagine being an Asian American actor. You feel like you're perfect for the role of Light Yagami. You've watched the show and you're like, man, if they ever made a movie, I'd be so good at this. And then you hear, oh, there's an American director making a Netflix version of the movie, and it's like, my dreams are coming true. I can audition for this, and sure, it's a 1 in a million chance that you're gonna get this part anyway, but still, you know, the hope is alive. And then you find out that some white guy, literally a member of the Naked Brothers band, got picked to play a character who's supposed to be this god of the free world. He controls the fate of the universe, and it's literally this scrawny white kid. I can imagine as an Asian American actor, you would see that and be like, you know, I probably could have done a better job than this guy, and I actually look like the guy from the show. Now, I also understand if you grow up here as an Asian American, right, and you watch TV as a kid, there's a problem with underrepresentation. You know, I've heard from Asian American people who have said growing up, they felt like an outsider because they watch TV and they don't see anyone that looks like them. They don't see any Asian people. And if they are on these shows, they have very strong accents. Aziz Ansari has talked about this before. You know, he never wanted to take a part where he was playing into the stereotype that they wanted him to play into. He just, like, why can't I just play a normal character, you know? So I imagine watching shows and movies and feeling like, oh, there's no one out there like me. I must be really different because I don't see anyone out there like me. I can see how that's kind of damaging. But I also understand, like, it's an American director. If he wants to cast white people to play these parts, then, you know, I think he can do that. The problem is, they casted the wrong people. The best character, besides Ryuk was played by Willem Dafoe, who has, like, the greatest voice, the most perfect voice for this character. Besides Willem Dafoe, the best actor in this movie is L. Keith Stanfield, the guy who plays him, looks physically as different from the anime version of L as he possibly could have. And yet, he did an amazing job. I think way more important than physical appearance is, like, can you embody the character? Can you act like what the character is supposed to act like? And he did a great job. He was quirky, he has like a soft voice while still able to kind of be menacing at times. I thought he nailed it. I thought he did an excellent job. So while I don't want to ignore the fact that whitewashing is a thing, even if it doesn't affect you as a white person, it does affect other people out there, so I think we should be sensitive to that. I also don't think that that's the problem. I don't think you can look at this and say, what's wrong with this movie? Well, they casted a bunch of white people, that's the problem. No, they casted the wrong white people. All right. I know I'm contradicting myself, but I do think there is validity to both sides of the argument. Yes, whitewashing is a thing. It's hard for minorities to get acting roles because even the roles that seem like they're made for them are given to white people. That is a problem. However, if the director and the producer thought that they had the perfect people to play these roles and they happen to be white, that's fine, you know, it's their choice. The movie isn't set in Japan, it's set in Seattle. If he wants a white kid and a white dad and his white girlfriend, then that's fine. It just makes it look worse, though, that it seemed like all these castings were wrong. And if you want to look at the worst casting, look no further than the main character. Light Yagami, or I don't even remember what his American version, Turner. Light Turner, that's what it is. Light Turner was played by Nat Wolff, who I know he's grown up from this. I know that you can play a role as a child and grow up and separate yourself from that role, but for me personally, when I look at him, I see Naked Brothers Band. Now, I wanted to wait until this movie came out so I could watch the whole movie and see how he did. My main problem with this casting is not that he's white, it's that he's a little bitch. It's not even really his fault. I don't think Nat Wolff is a little bitch, but I think in the show, or in the movie, and this wasn't his fault because this is how the character was written, and I think it was supposed to be, but like, the main character is like a little pussy. And I just don't think that's right for this character. So then the next part, the next biggest criticism is people saying, oh, this is nothing like the anime, this didn't happen the way it happened in the anime, and I don't think that's the right way to look at it either. When books are adapted into movies, or TV shows are adapted into movies, or Spider-Man is remade for the 100th time, you need to look at it in a way where rather than comparing it, you're just watching it for its own thing. It shouldn't be about accuracy, because as big of a fan as I am of the original Death Note, there's no point in just making a live action version that's exactly the same. There's no point. If this was a great movie, if this was a fantastic movie where they took this basic concept of Death Note but changed a bunch of the characters and story and kind of morphed it into this whole separate thing that stands alone, and it was really good, then it'd be like, okay, great job. The director killed it. He did a great job. The problem is, the movie sucks. It's just not a good movie. It's rushed. They tried to cram everything into the movie, so some parts were rushed and then some parts didn't make sense, and I felt like his whole relationship with his girlfriend was like, it just seemed out of place. Their relationship was such a distraction, but it was also like it was like the focal point of the story in a way. He finds the Death Note, and then like 15 minutes later, this girl he doesn't even know that well, he tells her about it, and then he shows her how to use it, and then they're like a team, and then they're like really awkward scenes where they're just kissing, and then he's like really awkward, and it just doesn't, it seems disjointed. It's weird. It doesn't feel right. It's not even so much that it's so different from what the show was, what he was on the show, but it's because it doesn't make sense for him to be a pussy. it doesn't make sense. I feel like that ruins the whole show. That ruins the whole movie because that goes against his whole motives. I feel like you have to have some intellect to be this kid who finds a death note and then wants to do all the things he ends up doing. It's like he's scared as hell of Ryuk. He's scared to even kiss the girl. It seemed out of place to throw in a scene where he's like about to kiss her and then he's like, "Can I kiss you?" And she's like, you're not supposed to ask. And then he's like, "Well, what do I do?" And then she kisses him. It's like, doesn't make sense with the character, in my opinion. The positives about this movie, I think it was visually very entertaining. I think it was well shot for the most part. The music was all right. The lighting was all right. I thought the death scenes were really gruesome. I kind of liked that it was just over the top, like messy and bloody. And I don't know. I'm just trying to think of positives because I don't want to just, it wasn't the worst movie ever. But, and even though, and like I said, I'm kind of a hypocrite because even though I'm saying like, you shouldn't compare it to the original, you should watch it for its own, my ultimate thoughts on it is that it didn't live up to the original. It's impossible to live up to the original. I wholeheartedly recommend watching the original Death Note series. Don't waste your time with this movie. But yeah, those are the things I think people are getting wrong. This video didn't need to make it, but you could probably say that about every single one of my videos. It's all unnecessary. I had an opinion on something, and I filmed myself talking about it, and now I'm gonna force that opinion on other people. Sorry I kind of disappeared for a while, guys. It's been about a month since my last video. I've been working on a video for a few days this past week, and I'm like 80% of the way through with it. So hopefully you guys won't have to wait too long for that. Anyway, I've talked for long enough. If you guys have stuck it out to the end, then you are the truest Drew Goodener of them all, and I appreciate that very much. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you're new here, check out my other videos, because they're better than this one. If you don't care about Death Note and you watch this whole thing, thanks. And I also don't know why you did that. Subscribe if you want, or subscribe to other people if you want. You don't have to necessarily subscribe to me, but you should always subscribe to someone. That's what I say. That's what I said just now. But take it easy, boys. And I will see you guys in the next video, which I actually filmed before this one. So, fun little thing there about that. It's really funny. I'm not really saying anything now, but I guess I'll put this in the end card. I'll have a couple other videos, probably on this side, and then subscribe button. So it doesn't really matter that I'm not saying anything, because like, if I was being really interesting, then you wouldn't be able to click on those other things, so you'd want to hear what I'm saying. But you should click on something